everybody, I am here with Beast to talk about different controllers. How you doing, man?
Another day in paradise, Bob. How's everything on your end, brother?
Pretty good. So I want to jump right in because you've been
Yep.
doing a lot of testing, and I really appreciate all the work you put in. But here's the basic overview. I've gotten a whole bunch of different controllers over the past couple of years, including the Octopus Fight Stick and a bunch of other stuff. And I'm able to lag test them, and I'm able to test for things that are pretty blatant. Like, if the right D-pad doesn't work, that's like the most used button in most games and stuff like that. But once it gets past that level, I need help from people who are more on the pro gamer side of things because it's kind of like giving somebody, who doesn't drink wine that often, three really awesome glasses of wine and asking them which one's better. They
Mhm.
could tell you which one they like better, but if they don't drink wine that often, it probably might even all taste the same. So once it got past that point, I kind of wanted to rely on you, and I was hoping that you could kind of give us a short overview of each controller. And I know that you're always going to give. Oh, I just knocked my headphones out with dumbass. I know that you're always going to give an honest opinion with this stuff. So,
Mhm.
wherever you want to start, just grab one of the controllers, or just start talking about one of them, and give us kind of an overview.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first things first, initially when I started utilizing fight sticks as a whole, uh, it was when I was really young. The Sega Genesis, the 6 button kind of arcade joystick, and then as well as the NES Advantage. And then I didn't start getting really heavy into it until like early 2000 with the Hori Sanwa edition. Sanwa became the standard after that for me. Recently, I'm real heavy into custom fight stick builds, so I'm going to show you what I built out first. And this essentially is this thing got so many revisions over time.
Hmm.
So this is a all fight sticks case with custom artwork. Everything is all Sanwa. I've got a removable lever on this one. Powering this is the Brook Ultimate Plus Retro, which is the same exact PCB found inside of the Octopus.
Okay.
The only major difference is that case is a 15.5. Uh, the name of the case is called the Prototype
Hmm.
from All Fight Sticks, whereas the Octopus is a 16.5 wide body. The chassis on this is perfect, especially the no slip padding on the bottom. Um,
So when you're saying those numbers, you're just talking about the width in inches, right?
yeah, the width in inches.
And they're both metal builds, and they're both kind of hefty, sturdy things that you don't have to worry about breaking just with normal use.
Correct. And easy to mod for both, technically. The only difference is if I needed a brand new layout on my personal one, I would have to buy a brand new chassis completely.
Mhm.
Whereas the Octopus has interchangeable button layouts on the fly that you could just buy from TR Fight Stick.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Um, on my custom build, I only have two outputs, which is for
Well, actually, can we
RJ45.
just pause there for a second? Because I think
Yeah,
that's kind of a relevant point. When you're talking about the TR Fight Stick Octopus, you unbolt it from the bottom. I made that mistake by
yeah,
myself. And then there are all these really nice wire harnesses in there that you could just unplug. So you don't
yeah,
have to sit there with a soldering iron and cut and resolder or anything like that. So if
yeah.
you want to switch between their
Mhm.
faceplates, that's all you would really have to do. So
Yeah,
if you're going from something like an all button fight stick to one with the spinner to not, it's 5 minutes worth of work to swap it out, right?
yeah. And replacing the what you call it, replacing parts on this thing is effortless,
Awesome.
which makes life super convenient, especially for people that if they're not accustomed to Sanwa or if they just prefer another lever completely or even different buttons because you not only have Sanwa that's out there, you have Saimitsu, Sitong, and Gamerfinger, just to name a few. It's just pop in and go.
And for custom sticks, they're cut out of metal, the good ones like that. So as long as the holes fit, you should be able to put whatever buttons you want. But then it's just back to customization. You have to
Right.
pull your clips off, solder it, or even if you built the wiring harnesses that are easy on, easy off, you have to build them all yourself. So
Right, 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 right. That
okay,
makes uh TR Fight Stick did a phenomenal job with construction for this, 100%.
cool. And there's absolutely nothing negative being said about any other custom fight sticks here. We're just saying like it holds up. But if
Mhm.
you're somebody that wants to build your own, you have your own custom parts that that you want, you have a chassis that you're able to, you could probably build it much cheaper than that, just without the extra features of it.
Right. You with the landscape of how fight stick chassis are coming out, you can be cost efficient and you can go the plexi route with like your Johnny Phrase B&B, which I recently did a couple of fight stick builds for tournament prizes. Or if you want the security and stability, you can go all fight sticks. Or if you don't have any experience, you can go, the Obsidian route with Quanba or any of the name brand manufacturers. Or if you just want one to rule all, you
This
know,
is the contender then.
oh yeah, oh
Cool.
yeah.
Glad to hear that. I kind of suspected that at the very least it was going to hold up with all the other solutions, but I wasn't sure what anybody's opinion was going to be as far as like the total thing goes. And of course, some of the biggest selling points are the built-in VMU for Dreamcast and the Brook board, so it could support a bunch of other consoles and stuff like that too. So cool.
Yeah, the originally from what was on the original backers page for this, it was originally marketed as a Dreamcast controller, but the fact that there's 10 VMUs on this and you just got to hit the VMU button and just, switch from memory cards. I made sure the first page was nothing but the fighting games save data. So if you pop it into either Marvel versus Capcom or Third Strike or Super Turbo, it's there. Everything is unlocked from the jump. Even Capcom versus SNK to Techromancer, just plug and go.
Mhm. Awesome. I think when I lag tested it, the USB output has under 3 milliseconds of average latency, which is indetectable in a real world scenario. There's nobody out there. I don't think it's humanly possible to be able to tell the difference between 1 and 3 milliseconds of latency for any game at all, right?
Yeah, Brooke made mention that it was roughly about or
Oh, I
three or
did test
point
it
three.
myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Brooke had mentioned it with the Brooke had mentioned the PCB on its own that it was going to be similar to their P5 fighting board, which when they first started development, like that input latency was key, and Tim did a phenomenal job with that. And now not only the P5, but the Ultimate Plus Retro and the Gen 5X. Same exact lag testing results. Like they're all sitting around the 3 to 4 marker. And that's chef's kiss. Chef's kiss.
That's what I thought. I'm pretty sure in almost all scenarios, you'd have to start to get to a total added latency of half a frame. So let's just call it 8 milliseconds in order for there to be any real effect on your game. And that's with a solid average, by the way. So if it's sometimes 12 and sometimes 4, that should be fine. I'm not talking about solutions that can sometimes jump to like high latency numbers. I'm talking about good solid ones, but that's also a total latency. So if you have your controller, but you also have your display, what kind of display, and so I do. On the other hand, always understand why people are looking for the lowest latency possible. Because if you're using a modern flat panel that has 9 milliseconds of lag, and you have a choice between a controller that has 7 milliseconds or 3 milliseconds, all that stuff adds up. So the fact that it's 3 is awesome, and I definitely happy to see that number. And I'll double check it too as soon as I get it back and get some of the console adapter cables as well. It should be the same on all of them, but I mean, it's my job to make sure, right? And obviously, everybody who works on this stuff, whether it's TR Fight Stick or Brook, they want me to double check them because they did a good job on it. So I will do exactly that.
Hmm.
Um, so as far as what you look for in a fight stick, right? It obviously has to be balanced and durable and kind of heavy. You can't have something that
Mhm.
doesn't weigh anything, or else it's just going to fall off the table or your lap. But what else did you look at it when you're approaching this thing, for playability, knowing that lag was already tested and okay?
The parts used, because regularly the gold standard for any fight stick being sold, usually by default, is going to be Sanwa.
Mhm.
So TR made sure like the buttons were Sanwa, but the lever was the previous JLF as opposed to the JLX. That's, the new standard now. Like that's the new staple.
So still made by Sanwa, just a slightly different part.
It's the previous model. The
What do
the
you think
lever
are the main differences between them?
stability, and it's a different type of switch that's used.
Okay.
Yeah. Long story short, the longevity wise, the JLX's micro switches are a bit more durable than the JLF, if you will. And on
So
top of
for
that,
somebody that's not a pro gamer that uses this occasionally, then there probably wouldn't be a difference. But for
there's
the
no
person that's
difference.
grinding all the time, showing up to events, like you just put 150 hours on your stick practicing for a tournament, now you're at the tournament, you don't want any chance of anything going wrong. So
Correct.
gotcha. Okay.
And on top of that, frame stability is also a big deal because up until I'd like to say Hori Kwanba, there weren't that many fight sticks that actually had the no slip padding, or rather, there were no consumer grade fight sticks that actually had the no slip padding up until I want to say the Hori VX4, I think it's called, that they started adding the no slip padding to it. So the fact that it's on more fight sticks now to avoid any slips and whatnot, phenomenal job. I like the one that's implemented on the Octopus. I prefer if it's like a no slip neoprene.
Hmm.
I'm a little bit biased because once again, if I'm in shorts or jeans, I want it to make sure it's going nowhere.
Yeah.
E- And external parts, Sanwa buttons can last over, I think, what is it, a million button presses. And the same applies to the original JLF. Whereas the JLX it's a more smoother rotation on the lever itself when it's the JLX model. And on top of that, Sanwa also sells accessories that let the lever hit the micro switches faster and stuff like that, and adjust the gate on the fly.
Okay. Now you were talking before, about preference of buttons for you. Now, I think
Yes.
even people who aren't pro gamers could just understand that part of it. There's
Hmm.
three right ways to do it, and you chose, choose the one that your hands fit the best.
Right.
But what did you end up switching out on that, and what was the difference from the original?
I'll actually grab it for you because what I ended up doing in the very beginning, I swapped it back at the end. Um, the only thing I did was switch out the stock lever
Hmm.
to a Sanwa JLX that had a that not only has a removable lever, but it has a blue actuator.
And for everybody listening, I'm going to be taking notes. And so if you hear me typing away, I'll take notes and make sure to have links for all of this stuff in case anybody listening is interested in switching over either with the Octopus or any fight stick that you might have.
So out of the box, it's very unassuming. The only thing you see is a Sanwa. This is a Sanwa lever with a removable lever.
Hmm.
Now on the underside, if we pop open the gate from here,
Hmm.
you'll notice by default the JLF one is white, the JLX is black. They're roughly the same. They're roughly the same dimensions. The JLX may be a little bit thicker, but the blue one is, I believe, it's a couple of millimeters thicker. I would have to go through the hassle of unscrewing everything. But if I pull the PCB out, that's it right there.
Okay.
It's I would like to. I could pull up the measurements on it via
I'll make sure to
Arcade
leave links
Shock.
to everything if anybody's curious about the size fits on it, but,
Yeah,
so that was for durability, for long-term use, and that was also because you wanted the removable stick, which probably makes it easier to transport because you don't have to worry about dropping it
yeah.
and snapping the stick.
And then on top of that, if you look at the chassis right here, they switched from plastic to palm material right here.
Mhm.
So this is what's providing more stability in your inputs, like this little black frame right here. Whereas on the regular JLF levers, it's a small, like it looks like a Tetris cube, or
Mhm.
rather a Tetris T shape that covers just the very left, the very right, the top and bottom. Whereas this is a more like a hexagon kind of shape that provides full stability on the lever. And even the pivot is also changed to a palm. So not you won't need to do any greasing on it, or rather greasing it as much to make sure all your inputs come out smooth.
Now, how often would an average person wanna worry about lubricating the parts like that, adding grease to it and stuff like that?
Once a year.
Okay. So
and
that's
and
once
it
again just more proof that the JLX is pro gamer focused because if you're constantly going to tournaments, you're constantly practicing, then you're gonna need to grease it up a lot more often, obviously.
it depends. It's always going to depend on whatever feels right to you.
Mhm.
um all you need is all you need is literally like a Q-tip worth of Shinetsu grease, and you just rub it inside the bowl, and you just rotate, and you're back to normal.
Leaving a note for that too.
Hmm.
Cool. And, you swapped the buttons out as well, right?
No,
Nope,
left it
just the
alone.
buttons exactly as ours?
Yeah,
Okay.
just left it alone because I was very big on gamer finger buttons, which are they use mechanical switches.
Mhm,
I think they're Cherry MX Cherry, the silvers.
mhm.
That's what I was using before, but then I just said, you know what? Let me go back to Sanwa, Old Faithful, because blame going to Japan.
'Cause
And I was just like, you
everything
know
out
what?
there was using Sanwa, right?
Everything is on Sanwa out there. So I was like, you know what? We're good. Let me go back to Old Reliable.
Cool. So from a part standpoint, we've already gone through that. You gave it your thumbs up. From USB out, that obviously, that works fine too. All the different modes. I'll actually also leave a link to the newest user guide for anybody that buys it, just because that's the only thing that you would never be able to figure out what mode to move in
Yes.
without it, which isn't an
Yeah.
insult. It is what it is. You need that cheat
Right.
sheet depending on what mode you have. I'll leave myself a note for that as well to make sure I get that in there. But
And on
um,
top of that, it's also really good to know the button combinations should auto detect not work, because out of the box it tells you hold the start button and then connect whatever system you're going to be playing on, and then it'll stay on auto detect mode. In the event that the controller is not being detected, then you go about manual mode, and then all the button combinations are there.
cool. From the console side of things, were you able to try the Dreamcast?
Yes, yes,
So
I
how did that
did.
work with the VMU integration? How did it feel playing like Third Strike on the Dreamcast with it?
I was able to pull my Akuma shenanigans off on Third Strike, more specifically Second Impact, because Akuma is 50 shades of busted in Second Impact. Played some Techromancer, played some Marvel. I made sure to use the Capcom collection, the one that was made by Toodles. That it also comes with all of the saves, to unlock all the characters and stuff. No issues, no complaints. Like, just go. I didn't user beware. When you first get yours, there's a VMU button that you're going to want to go through all 10 pages,
Mhm.
and you're going to have to format all 10 pages. So
Okay.
I formatted the first page because I think that's all I need for the fighting games. And and just go. You're just off to the races after that point.
And, when would you switch VMUs for this in the context of what you're using it for here? When one of them fills up, do you switch
Yep.
per game? That's basically it, or
When one of them fills up, because I'm a simple boy, I like simple things. So page one is fighting games.
Mhm.
And then page two would be for vertical shooters. That would be it. That would be the only time I would switch VMU slots up.
Cool. And they have that PC software that allows you to back those up, I believe, too, right?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
And you were also able to try some other console adapters, but just to pause for a second, since this is a Brook board that is powering this thing, you're basically able to use any of the RJ45 to console cables, right? Because they didn't
Yep.
just reinvent the wheel for this; they're using what you could buy at all the different stores.
Yeah. So the RJ45 cables, those became a thing with the. Okay, we're going back in time.
MC
MC
Cthulhu,
Cthulhu
Cthulhu, yeah.
and PS360 Plus.
Mhm.
But what's weird was PS360 Plus ended up getting Sega Saturn support much, like I'm talking a decade later.
Hmm.
But yeah, MC Cthulhu and Brooke did it. Brooke decided we're not reinventing the wheel. We're going to implement that to our hardware, and the rest is history.
Cool. So you were able to try at the very least SNES and N64, right?
So I tested SNES, N64, PlayStation 1, 2, Dreamcast, GameCube, regular Nintendo slash Famicom, OG Xbox, and
Jeez.
hell yeah, it was a perfect opportunity to play Kakuto Trojan. That game is hilariously bad.
And did you
And
run into issues with any of those?
only Nintendo 64,
Okay.
because I'm under the impression that there's a verification method that Nintendo is using for its controllers, and it applies to quite a more than a handful of games, because I actually made a list. I didn't get a chance to fully finish it all the way because once again, when it comes to game testing, I use everything that I own.
Mhm.
So while testing, the games that gave me an issue, that gave me the no controller issue or didn't even boot up, were Zelda Ocarina of Time, Mario 64, Animal Crossing slash Animal Forest, Blast Core slash Blast Dozer, and Gauntlet didn't even boot up because Gauntlet searches for a true N64 controller.
Hmm. So, if you wanted to use this for those games, which most of those games I can't imagine you would wanna use a fight stick for, but if you wanted to, would
Right?
you just have to boot with an N64 controller and then swap while you're in game, or it just won't work
That
at all?
that's it. That's literally all you got to do. Just plug in, and as soon as you get past the splash, swap and go.
Awesome.
Hmm.
That is really cool. Thank you for all that deep dive testing. That is
Oh, for
absolutely
sure.
awesome.
I
Um,
definitely made sure to attack Super Nintendo because the hilarious enough, there's a very competitive scene, especially in North America, for the Sailor Moon fighting game,
oh,
the
yeah.
Gundam Wing Endless Duel, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles tournament fighters. We are active in that game, and I didn't realize it. I play Power Rangers and Gundam Wing Endless Duel. Like those are my jam. I didn't know how active Turtles tournament fighters were.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize
Especially
that either.
if you just type in like TMNTTF on YouTube, guaranteed a tournament is going to pop up for it. Like, and it's so entertaining, the stuff that these guys lab out. It's sick.
That is very cool. Was there anything about the octopus stick that we didn't mention that you wanna talk about before we move on to the next controller?
Ah, um, for anyone that's going to be buying this in the future, I'm still waiting for Brooke to make the announcement. They're gonna be adding it's an external piece that's gonna be added to the PCB itself for Sega Genesis and for Neo Geo support.
So on the Octopus stick, they have the Neo Geo port on there that you just need that type of cable. But is that
DB15.
do you know if that's a bypass like it is with the other Brook boards?
That is a bypass.
So what that means is that if you're using this for Neo Geo or for any super gun that uses the Neo Geo connector, or their Genesis adapter goes through that too, all the buttons will work, but you don't get any of the turbo, you don't get any of the remapping, you don't get any of the other stuff, correct?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
I mean, it's also 0 latency, so I could absolutely see a scenario in which somebody might just say, "You know what? I just don't even wanna think about lag. I don't need the extra features for this game. Let me just plug
Right.
this stuff in." But you're saying that Brook is coming up with an adapter board that allows you to use the RG40 or yeah, RG45 cable, so
Mhm.
that not only would it work with those, but you'd get all of the built-in features that this has.
Correct. That was the only thing that the Genesis was the only thing I didn't test, but I do have a Wingman Mega Drive and PC Engine slash TG16, and it worked. You know, USB to adapter, it worked. I was trying to play Paprium.
Awesome. Alright, what controller do you wanna talk about next? I think I sent, like, 3 over or something like that.
Okay, so let's grab the pot. We're gonna play it safe.
Mhm.
Retro Fighters did a great job with this one. We're going with the N64. We're going with the Brawler.
Cool.
This thing, see, I already had the ice blue wired one. I was already a fan. I
Okay.
was I was already a big fan of the Retro Fighters Brawler for the Nintendo 64. So my expectations with this were okay. I know what I'm getting myself into with the membranes, how the controller feels. Built-in vibration was awesome.
So
Like
just to
that
pause
was
real quick for anybody listening audio only, the Brawler 64 is from Retro Fighters, and it has the button layout of an N64, but the typical Retro Fighters, feel like a Xbox 360 style-ish sort of controller, but the button layout of N64, with
yep.
the, analog stick moved to where you probably would want it in a situation like this.
Yeah, this thing it felt like second nature. I have no complaints on this one whatsoever. Primarily the main thing I was testing was just even latency felt really good when playing on Nintendo Switch as well as via the Blue Retro adapter for the N64.
Mhm.
Zero complaints.
So this is the one that averaged, were you playing wired or wireless?
I was alternating between both.
So wired has average of 3.3 milliseconds of latency, so the same as the Octopus stick, and
Mhm.
the Bluetooth mode was 8.5 milliseconds, which is really fast for wireless. And
Yes.
wireless is getting better and better, but I mean, 5 years from now, that would be an unheard of number, maybe a little more than
Right.
that, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, I have no complaints with this. Usually when it comes to N64 controller testing, I'm alternating between Mario Party, um, WWF No Mercy, Virtual Pro Wrestling, and then what is it? Mario Kart, Diddy Kong Racing, and the I'm always doing the mobility. I'm doing the long staircase from Mario 64 because if I can do the reverse leap up the stairs with it, it's a good controller.
Nice. Do you play Smash at all, or do you only play real fighting games? No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
I play Smash casually.
Okay,
Uh, for 64, I play Captain Falcon and Fox. So usually, the first thing I'm testing is down throw up air into Falcon Punch because it's a reliable combo, and no issues pulling that off, and yeah, no issues there. And I also tested Killer Instinct and Clay Fighter 63 and a third. That game is.
And you're playing this with
Ugh.
the analog stick, not the D-pad, right?
D-pad.
You are playing with the D-pad.
The D-pad is
Okay.
actually very good for the Brawler 64. Um, WWF No Mercy also relies on the D-pad as well as Virtual Pro. The analog stick is actually used for taunting
Hmm,
in No Mercy and VPW. So
that's
uh,
funny.
the the only game that you're gonna have a very hard time playing is Sin and Punishment, because Sin and Punishment are is the one game that you use the D-pad to move around with, and you use the analog stick and the Z button to shoot.
Right, okay. So that makes perfect sense. So,
Yeah.
now for the analog stick stuff, I have always kind of followed it, but have not been so hardcore into N64 that I could really truly wrap my head around the differences. Because there's obviously the analog sticks that are just crappy like the third party ones that are
Yeah.
crappy construction, they fall apart. That's easy for anybody to visualize. But like in Tito's last video about that metal one, part of it was the accuracy and how it also lines up to the same as the original.
Yes.
Does that really not affect fighting games as much, or does it? Like, how would this analog stick compare to like an original N64 as far as accuracy from like a pro fighting game point of view?
It's gonna I want to say it's gonna be player preference,
Okay.
but for the I would like to say it's more so for the speed running, in which players are going to definitely want um you know similar accuracies to the classics. Once again, it is player preference, but at the same time you're going to want to use an original controller, because I'm not too sure how speedrunning.com or SGDQ does their, what's necessary for, to be eligible to speed run on the stage.
Hmm.
Most players are going to prefer to go OEM. If if the Retro Fighters controller is a good substitute, the players are going to be very impressed, especially with the what's this thing called? Especially with the fighting game stuff. Well, specifically for Smash, because
So
wave
I always
dashing with
just
it is
assumed though
really
when
good.
you're talking about speed running, this is one of the rare cases where every millisecond counts. So I just didn't expect speedrunners to use anything other than original N64 controllers.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking more along the lines of like competitive Smash players or people who are just really love the N64 and are used to the analog stick. Other than the placement, of course, is there
Yeah.
like a huge difference in this, or is it going to be good enough for at least your average N64 player?
I'm gonna say it's a subjective take. But most players are gonna opt for the N64, the stock one, despite the analog stick issues,
Mhm.
and maybe just upgrade to, if a steel stick 64 is available, or they'll just buy a reliable drop-in replacement. But if it was me, I would use the Retro Fighters if it was available. Like, if I had absolutely nothing on hand and nobody was selling anything at the convention for, or at the event, that was a N64 controller, I'd go Retro Fighters.
Cool. All right, I mean, that's a pretty bold statement right there then, because
Yeah,
it's one
I
of those
would.
things where, if you weren't gonna rely on it, then you wouldn't have said that, so I liked it, but I'm not the biggest N64 fan. What I ended up using it a lot for was, because it has the 2 main buttons and then, the triggers and the extras, I used it, connected wirelessly to my vertically oriented MiSTer setup, so I was playing a lot
Nice.
of shooters with the analog stick and that, and I just from that scenario, I didn't find anything wrong with it, but that's not the average person who would buy that, which is why I'm happy to talk to you about it, so
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
cool. All right, what's next on the list for us?
Let's go with the 8-bit do Neo Geo controller,
Okay.
because this thing is a proper throwback to the Neo Geo CD controller. Like, I gotta give this its flowers, because once it was a scenario where out of the gate I was just like, oh, okay, this is a nice little substitute. I fired it up on the MVS and I fired it up in the CD unit, and
Mhm.
the rest is history. 8-bit do is getting ridiculously good with their wireless input latency. Like that's one thing that
So the last time I tested this, this was a long time ago. It was right after it came out, but this was that weird scenario where in wired mode it was 6 milliseconds of latency, but in 2.4 gig wireless it was 4.5 milliseconds of latency,
yeah
which is about the same. But I just thought it was weird that their wired version wasn't as fast, and in Bluetooth mode it was almost 10 milliseconds of latency. So
yeah
nothing bad, but also I thought there was room for improvement because other 8-bit DOE controllers were faster.
yeah even their 8-bit do their wireless receivers. I made sure to because their wireless receivers are 2.4 gigahertz mode, and I usually use the 8-bit do one with I was using it at one point on my Nintendo Switch with a DualSense Edge.
Mhm.
It felt wrong, but it was so right type of scenario. And I also tested this on the Nintendo Switch wirelessly with the arcade archives
Mm.
collection with like Fatal Fury Special, Overtop, uh, Metal Slug, Shock Troopers. Felt really good. And then off of Neo Geo CD, um, I did Drift Out, Windjammers, Puzzle Bobble, Sengoku, and then on the AES, I was playing Nam 1975 or 79, Magician Lord, like everything that requires a lot of pinpoint timing. No issues whatsoever. It took a little bit of adjustment because I'm so used to playing on arcade controller, but perfect, uh, perfect secondary controller to use.
Now I liked the main buttons on it. The 4 buttons, I thought they were placed the same as the original Neo Geo CD controller. They felt fine, and I liked the D-pad for my personal choice in this one is if I wanted to use a joystick, but I wanted to have more of an arcadey feel, that's what I would use. That's what I would choose. How do you think that lines up, as far as to like the original Neo Geo CD controller, as well as just when would you recommend to use this over another one because that's such a wildly different, D-pad, if you will, than standard.
Oh, I actually have another original Neo Geo CD controller. The only difference is it just doesn't have the shoulder buttons, and the layout is from the bottom, A, B, and then C, D. So the button layout is in reverse,
Hmm.
but same same exact. They have the same exact feel. Um, the membranes, no, not even the membranes because the buttons are a little bit. The face buttons are clicky. There's membranes on the original, whereas the switches on the 8-bit do one are more tactile, but it actually feels really good.
Okay. Awesome. So I had always liked that one, and I hadn't done any. I don't even know if there's a firmware update for it. So at some point, I'll retest that just to see if they improved the latency on it. But I think that's a good choice. I like that one. And so the last controller that was the D6.
Hmm.
What do you think of this one?
I took a lot of notes when using this one the same way I did with their previous Retro Fighters Dreamcast pad, especially with hearing really bad influencers claim it's just fine to them.
So from a latency point of view, just under 2 milliseconds average in wired mode and 5 milliseconds average in wireless, which is excellent.
Oh yeah.
So that part of it is good. It was durable. I liked it when Ryan from Arcades Games, threw it out the window and then picked
Yeah.
it up and kept playing it.
Hell
But
yeah.
what did you find about it then, that kinda made you take all these notes?
So, okay. The first thing I made sure to test was fighting games on it because once again,
Well,
retro
that's kinda what it was
fighters.
for, yeah.
But it can't be retro fighters if you can't do crouch medium kick into a fireball motion. Like it's such an essential tool if you're playing Ryu, Ken, and Akuma in your Street Fighter games.
Mhm.
So the fact that I had to like really grind, you know, simple bread and butter combos, it was a bit frustrating.
And that's the
Um,
D-pad on this thing?
yeah, it's the
Okay.
D-pad. Even when doing 360s and 720s, they weren't consistent. Doing certain crouch supers, very inconsistent. I wasn't able to link certain combos in certain games. Um, when I was playing on the Dreamcast and I was running the Atomic Wave conversions, there were certain inputs I couldn't mainly mobility. I couldn't do super jump into air dash. But then when we got into games like Virtua Tennis, Dynamite Cop, Border Down, the horizontal shooters and the action games, perfectly fine.
Hmm, okay.
Everything was perfectly fine.
So I wonder where this stems from. Could they have used a different membrane? Is there, is it the layout? Is it the plastic pieces? Does your gut tell you that anything like does it do something similar to other stuff that's been checked out over the years? Or
So it is. So my thing is, for quality of life testing, the first thing I do is I'll jump on either Third Strike or I'll turn to Super Turbo because I know various high damage combos for Ryu and Super Turbo, and then Akuma in Third Strike, where they require a little bit of execution, but they're simple enough. And if I can't do them 10 out of 10 times, we got a problem.
Mm,
That's the because and I usually do 10 times with with my character facing right, then 10 times with my character facing left. That's a drill. Like you have to get those drills down because you get put in a cranky matchup situation. You got to make sure they're on point. But yeah, the retro fighters, it was great with shmups. Like I had no complaints there, but the fact that I wasn't able to do simple bread and butter combos consistently with it, and I kept telling myself, it's a learning process. You don't play on pad like that. But then at the 1 hour, 1.5 hour marker, it's like, wait a minute.
but you're also trying all these other controllers too. So if
Yeah.
you're trying all these other things and you're able to do it time after time again, and you can't do it on this one, that's enough proof. It's not
Yeah.
like you're only testing fight sticks and jumping into controllers. Like you use controllers all the time. So,
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah. That was the only main thing that I had an issue with. And when I hilarious decided to play Sonic Adventure 2 because there is a analog stick mode on the D6, but when you're holding up, Sonic starts to like veer to the left. And I'm like, wait, I'm not going into a different lane. Go straight, please. So
Okay.
yeah.
So there could be some calibration issues on the controller then if the in analog mode up is kind of drifting, or do you think that might be game specific?
Uh can't confirm or deny.
It does
But
seem like that would be a hardware issue though.
yeah, because once I plugged in a regular Dreamcast controller, everything was fine. So
I can't imagine having D-pad to analog conversion would be flawless, but I
yeah.
would expect it not to do that. So, interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a brand new controller. That was, I did the unboxing video. I used it for a couple of minutes. I thought it was comfortable, but when it came in, that's when I like a bunch of other stuff hit, and I was like, this is going to sit on my shelf for months. I got to send this to Beast to test. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not like this was something that I had thrown in a bag and brought it to tournaments or something like that. This was out of the box, back in the box, and then that's it. So all right,
The
interesting.
players, the what do you call it? Last week at my tournament for City of the Wolves, I brought the Octopus with me. Nothing but positive player feedback. All they kept asking was, "What's the price point?" That's it.
Yeah. Well, actually, so I guess that kind of, sums it up towards the end here. Like overall, when you're testing these, what, one, two, three, four different controllers, like, do you have just like what's your basic thoughts overall on them? And I guess we did forget to talk about the bringing the octopus to the tournament. So maybe just
Oh
kind of if you
yeah.
would just give your overview on all this stuff.
So with the N64, the 8-bit Zoo Neo Geo, and the D6, I make sure to test out simple combos in commonly played fighting games. And primarily because you want to make sure everything you do links.
Hmm.
That's one. Um if you're more on the casual side, it may not be an issue to you, but if you've been labbing various combos, especially when you're playing your favorite fighters on your favorite system,
Mm.
it may be it may be a deterrent. It may be pretty deterring when you start trying to lab something and you can't get it 10 out of 10 or 5 out of 5 times. Um Form factor is always something I keep in mind, which the D6, the Neo Geo, and the Brawler, they all have it. Like the form factor is there. It's super comfortable in the hands. Um, I was actually speaking with the guys from Retro Fighters in regards to the D6, and I told them, hey, maybe do a revision of the D6 that has membranes.
Mm.
So maybe you get a better output. You get a what you call it. It'll be easier to do certain moves that require input motions for the fighting games, especially the Third Strikes, the Super Turbos, Marvel versus Capcom, because there are players that, like my guy G Thriller, that he plays on a PS4 pad,
Mm.
and he can do the Iron Man Infinite and make someone's day go from good to extremely bad. So
Yeah, I
that
mean, controller preference is definitely something that's on a per person basis. I remember going to tournaments, all through Brooklyn, hanging out with you guys, and there were people bringing anything from a PlayStation 2 controller with their
yep.
converter to an old clicky keyboard that they just grew up playing these fighting games on. Like, 'cause
Hmm.
some people just they get the thing that that works for them, and then that's what they want to stick with. So that's
Hmm.
totally fine. So I guess your overview on all of these from just expect that you're going into something different, but
Hmm.
there's nothing that jumped out at you from a form factor point of view, and there's nothing other than the D6 D-pad for fighting games. There was nothing that jumped out as like this thing's broken. They all just kind of
Right.
you were able to adapt to them.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of how Retro Fighters did the N64 controller
Mm.
because growing up I owned I don't know who made the controller. It was either Nyko or Mad Cats, but there was one that looked like it was one controller that, oh my god, the form factor was so weird. But the D-pad was up here, the analog stick, and then it looked like Free Willy jumping out of the ocean. And then it was A B C D with A B and then the C buttons, L and R, and the Z on the backside. It was the weirdest controller
I
I'd
think I
ever
remember
seen,
seeing that.
but it was so comfortable to play on.
Hmm.
I played a Clay Fighter 63 and a third with that for hours.
Love it.
That was one of those good purchase scoops. Even the racing games, especially Ridge Racer, Extreme G, Mario Kart, and Diddy Kong Racing, they all felt really good on that controller. But those racing games mentioned feel really good on the Retro Fighters Brawler for 64.
Nice. And I guess just the overview of the Octopus, you liked it, and how did other people at the tournament like it as well?
The majority of the players were like, "Yo, this chassis is perfect." Like
Glad to hear.
when I hear perfect, it's one of those like, "Oh snap, word." Um, because I had the JLX with the blue actuator lever in it, immediately they instead of uh usually they'll just lab some combos and do because most of them were using Marvel versus Capcom 2 on the fighting collection, and because we were running Fatal Fury City of Wolves, they were labbing combos on each. And when they were tampering with the lever, they were like, "Beast, what lever's in here?" And I'm like, "It's the Sanwa JLX with a blue mic with the blue actuator, but by default, it's a regular Sanwa lever." Very nice. I like it. And
Nice.
And
That's
then they
cool.
would end up doing some crazy, wild mobilities, like labbing combos. And overall, it was just nothing but good feedback. I had people like, Beast, how much? And I'm like, it's not for sale, but you can go on the website. It's 450. Tell them I sent you. And I think TR got a couple of sales off of that, which is great.
Awesome. I guess price is the one thing that we didn't talk about before that we should
Yeah.
probably come back around to. So it's obviously very expensive, but it's a get
Hmm.
what you pay for scenario here. But for all the people that are like just build your own, you actually build your own all the time.
I
So
do.
what would it take to build something like this from scratch, assuming that you're getting a chassis pre-built, you're not cutting metal yourself and stuff like that. To build something like that, what would it cost? And could you even have something with VMU emulation in it?
Yeah, you can. So the Brook Ultimate plus Retro PCB alone is around the 139 to 150 marker.
Okay.
A chassis, if you're going metal, a minimum it's probably going to be around the, if you decide to do custom artwork and you make sure you have the joystick mounting panel, it's going to be about 175. If you go the plexi route, it's 130. That's
Hmm.
half the battle. Then you gotta implement your wiring harnesses, which is $25. Then your lever, which can range anywhere from 25 to 150, $200. That's if you're going the super premium route. Soundwell buttons are about $4 each for the face. So 3, $4 times eight, and then the additional six buttons for your options. And if you wanna, you'll have VMU emulation if you use the Ultimate plus Retro, but there's no, there's only one case on the as far as I'm aware of that actually has an LCD hole that you can put an LCD in, and you'll be able to switch, through VMUs. But I believe the Ultimate plus Retro, I have to look into it again because the Octopus has eight. I'm not sure how many by default have 10. Let me do a quick check
So I guess
on.
while you're checking that, then, so for somebody who wants to build their own stick for use with Super Guns or Neo Geo, we're talking at a minimum $75 if you take an old shoebox and put it in there. You know what I mean? I'm being a
Yeah.
little bit facetious, but not like everybody has something around their house they could use to repurpose for it. So if you're on a super budget, you could do it direct plug for under 100. You could get a USB adapter for that's not a full retro one that just goes from that to USB for probably I think only like 25, $30. So really if you're on a budget and you want to build your own, you could do it for 100. If you're on a budget and you want it with a nice chassis, you're looking at probably almost 200. You could save a bit if you go to the plexi route. But once you start adding in the retro features, and the especially if you want to get the exact same stick and buttons that are in here, you're not really saving any money off of just buying it from them. I mean, you kind of could, but also time should be considered in this. If you love building your own stuff, of course, go for it. But if you're like, I'd so much rather spend my time playing games than building something, then so this is cost effective in the right context. It's not
Hmm.
overpriced. It's just expensive.
No. Yeah, it's pricey, but also, which there's one thing I got to call out that Herset did a phenomenal job with, or rather, TR Fight Stick. He left multiple button layout, lever and leverless options on the page.
Mm,
Um, right out of the gate, because the standard for most consumer grade fight sticks, they use the Vuelix layout, where it accommodates for rainbow button layout. The last six would be like the old school American layout, or the first six would be a callback to the Sega button layouts. But the Vuelix layout has ultimately been like the most standard use
mhm.
for companies like Quanba, Mad Cats, and I think the only other companies that and Victrix.
Hmm.
Those things are expensive for no reason. Um, Seriously, we get it. Brushed aluminum and a removable lever. What else? But the Octopus, when you're getting ready to buy it, it'll accommodate whatever layout you're looking for, albeit lever or leverless. And then it's off to the races. Then you could just add whatever artwork you want later to it.
Cool. Um, I'm pretty sure that sums up everything that we need. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add? I think we kind of covered it all though, right?
Yeah, for the most part, I think we covered everything up. Once again, if you're purchasing an Octopus, read the manual. Like
Yeah.
that's the one thing I can't stress enough because Brook did their thing when it came to the Ultimate Plus Retro board. I've been using their product since 2017, 2018 when they debuted with the Brook Universal Fighting Board that covered 360, PS3, Series X, PS4 and 5, Nintendo Switch, and Wii U. Uh, the fact that they managed to squeeze so many consoles onto one little board, and in order to access them, it's USB for anything with a USB port and RJ45 for retro. The only thing you got to do is either hold start and plug or go manual mode. Keep the manual on your phone at all times,
Yeah.
just in case of anything. If you should encounter any issues, keep the manual on your phone at all times.
Yeah. Good advice.
Hmm.
So if anybody wants to see more about Beast, we did an interview a while back, and I also had him over to test the Neo Geo emulation console, arcade console thingy a while back too. So
Big buttons go burr. Big
absolutely.
buttons go burr.
I still love how many comments from people losing their minds thinking that you're smashing it, and it's like, we're in an echoey apartment in New York
Hmm.
City with a microphone 2 feet away and an empty arcade machine that's so you're
Hmm.
hearing a lot of echo there, but I think, anybody that knows gaming could see that and go, "Okay, this makes sense." But yeah, well, I'll leave links to absolutely all of that, and for people to follow you, obviously, you have your Twitch channel, but where are the other good places for people to follow you?
Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram, and Blue Sky, the primaries, just Beast1X5. Nothing crazy.
Cool. I will leave links to all of that. And, as always, thank you so much for everything, Beast. I really appreciate the help.
Anytime.
See you.